Hi everyone, how you guys doing today? I have a friend and a brother here with me, Mr. Olu Abiba, who is an incredible animator, designer. He wears a whole bunch of hats. You could call him a developer as well. He just doubles as everything. But you might argue those different things that I just mentioned doesn't really best characterize who he is. So I'm just going to give him an opportunity to introduce himself as well. But I'm really excited to have the conversation with you here today, Olu. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. Like you said, my name is Olu Abiba, and I think the title I've come to settle in to not talk too much right now is more of I'm a technology generalist because I've worked across many roles in IT and in digital space over the years, from information technology processes to digital design and marketing and communications and technology leadership. So a lot of those experiences has come to work together and adds up to what I bring into the work that we do to be able to cut across multiple roles to get into deeper problem solving. And so
Fantastic.
here I am.
Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. So how did you get into technology? Let's start there. Like what was that defining moment for you when you were like, okay, I'm going to let go of the medical career, which is what the majority of people pursue, law, or sometimes you get electrical engineering. It's kind of computer-ish, but not necessarily computer science.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I've not necessarily thought about this because I've been in technology for over 20 years now. And I would say maybe since a very young age, I've had the influence of my brothers. I have a brother that did maths and statistics and is mostly the one that has been in the technology space, being a DBA. And so I got to play around with getting to understand SQL through him and reading some of his books and getting to play with designing web pages from HTML and CSS and JavaScript from the original webs, where we will save pages on floppy disks and take it home to figure out from a cafe and say, take it home, figure out how it works. And I will say, in fact, sometimes when I think back at design and user experience, I will say I've probably been doing that from before I was a teenager. Because even from when a child picks up a Lego piece and tries to build something with it, that's innovation, that's creating experience to express yourself. And then you do some level of artistic, creative things like painting and drawing and carving, which all adds up to your journey in user experience design. So honestly, it's not like it's a time frame that I got into technology. I would say it just evolved over the years. And here I am today from
Fantastic.
wanting to hack this and wanting to fiddle with that. And at some point, it became a job.
Wow.
Exactly. And here I
Wow.
am today.
So I know you went from that to, doing some businesses and
Yeah.
then also actually building software animation, not software animation, software applications and things of that
Yes.
nature.
Yes.
So can you speak about your stack and what stack you're using, just sort of how you
Wow.
got into that space?
Oh, wow. That's a lot because it's been a long time. I will say the first set of applications that I built will function more like toys. And that was in Visual Basic years ago with Adobe Flash, Macromedia Flash then.
What Flash and family like that? I
Exactly.
learned that overnight, man.
Exactly. Macromedia Fireworks, Macromedia Dreamweaver was a development tool, and I played with a lot of web pages. And then I picked up the tech stack for web applications, which is Code Fusion, which
Mhm.
Microsoft access as a database, and that grew to become Microsoft SQL. So I was able to build web applications that were database interactive and then scale on that. And after that, over the years, I picked up on PHP MySQL. And that's talking about my web development career, if we're restricting it to that. Because out of that, there's also the creative explorations and design and marketing and communications, and then social media promotions and things like that, where we now get to leverage lots of APIs. So even at the moment, when I work with other developers, I think one thing, having been a developer for a long time, I just let people choose their stack as long as you can independently deliver on the results or something that can communicate with a different technology.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think you're more of a technically curious person, so you tend to be able
exactly.
to,
Thank you.
take a technology and master it and become
Exactly.
a
Exactly.
user
And
of
so
it.
I kind of like realized that I function more on the innovative end of things. Like, okay, what is possible? What is impossible? What problems do we have? How can we move closer to solving the problems?
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, how did you move from that to animations? So, you basically, I know you still do a whole bunch of that, but it appears like your focus is more in the animation space right now. How did you move from that?
That's the thing. It's easy. It's people who know me, maybe personally and professionally, that can actually say maybe this person has always been curious with animation. But it's just one of those pieces that okay, animation is a very complex and tedious process. And I like to take on complex and tedious challenges. And because I've kind of like always been in this space where I like to tell stories, and I realized that in exploring that path, there's a gap between someone who is a writer to reaching his or our audience. There's a huge gap, and there's a lot of gatekeeping in terms of before you get published, before you get distribution, before you actually turn your idea into a concept. So about 10 years ago, I went into actually exploring that, where I'm like, even if you're going into this content explosion world where social media is picking up, there's a particular segment that is being left behind, which is the safe content for kids. And I took on that, okay, maybe we should start telling, if we're saying we don't like the content that our kids are seeing on social media and on media in general, we should take control of that and start to find ways to put in the kind of content that we would like our children to see, which are ethical, which are moral driven. And that was when we decided that, okay, if we couldn't afford to go into typical animation studio with the budget, we could actually build an app that allows children even see traditional stories that they know, ethnical stories that they know, in better expressed in the Disney style or in the Pixar style. And that gave rise to maybe we should build a bookshelf app that actually gives them access to those stories for cheap or almost for free. And then that gave rise to an app called KunKu, KUNKU, which was available. It's still available on the iOS and the App Store, where you can have access to a repository of short stories for kids. And we've been encouraging people to actually write. Now, that brought me into a different industry of writing and publishing, which is chaotic, like the challenges in it, the gaps and things like that. But we were like bent on like, okay, even if you have a story to do, you should be able to help you publish it to reach an audience so that you can quickly validate how engaging your story is and be prepared for the right publisher in case it's ready to actually scale and blow up, and not wait for somebody to come and pick you up. And that was the whole purpose of that. And so what has now happened is understanding that goal, that we were trying to curate a couple of good stories and writers to prepare for an age where the publishers will actually, or the big media companies would actually see those contents and be able to filter out the ones that are good enough and actually give rights to them or get rights for them. What has now happened is, I guess, AI has brought that goal of turning those stories into media closer, with the ability to actually bring and make short animations and clips. And so it bridges that barrier that if you have to wait 10 years from an idea to a published story or screenplay, you can actually be able to achieve that now in a few days. But you have to leverage a lot of technological tools to do that. And
So
that's
that was a whole lot of information. But
yes.
I will step back a bit. I'll step back a bit here. So you spoke about KunKu. So let's step back and talk about KunKu. So no idea what KunKu is.
Yes. So
Explain to me what KunKu is. What are you really trying to accomplish with that? But also, what is it that technology is helping you to do now that you would not have been able to do before? Because I would suspect that you're not a 3D animator, are you?
well, no, I'm not.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're not a 3D animator. Are you a 2D animator?
Yes, the thing is, I dabbled bits and pieces with every one of this that you're saying, but I'm
Okay.
not done it as a career. Yes.
Yes. The reason I'm bringing those out is because one of the focuses of our podcast is really to really highlight what AI is actually doing
Yes.
in 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 bringing creativity into light.
Yes.
Basically, one of the things that AI has been able to successfully help creators to be able to do is to actually create content really incredibly.
Yes.
Yesterday, I was on one of my friends' Instagram page, and I saw that he had basically him driving a Volkswagen, and he looked very real, like it looked extremely real.
Okay.
And then it swapped from there to driving in the forest, like it was doing the monster truck, playing the monster truck game. And I was like,
Okay.
oh my God, like these technologies have gotten so good
Yeah.
that essentially you can, if you do not have, you might have a certain level of creativity, which is what is really most important in building anything. The tools are relevant, but the tools are quite irrelevant to the audience that is watching it, because they just want something really exciting, something that basically sparks of interest. But then you'd have had to spend millions of dollars working on that entire process.
Yes.
Now you get to cut that process down by basically using AI. So that's one of the reasons why I'm differentiating, just making some of those clarifications. It's not like you have you're not a 3D animator for Disney, you're not
No.
a 3D animator
No.
for, but then
No.
you're able to bring your creativity alive because of the power of AI. So question for you, what are some of the things that what is the app that you're building, and what are some of the things that AI gives you the ability to do? Because I want our audience to really learn from how AI can actually help shape their ideas.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. I think a way to put it is the possibility right now is that if you have a process that you work with, that you're running, that takes a lot of time and repetitive processes, there are things in there that you can actually leverage AI to achieve and to do faster and quicker. That shortens your time frame from your idea to your. An example of that is, for example, I think the most basic one is if you say, okay, I'm a script writer and I want to spend the night thinking about putting my ideas together and sleeping over it to grow it in the next morning and shape it better. That's something that you can actually put an idea together in the tool like ChatGPT, put a note and a couple of ideas together and get suggestions. Which rather than you growing that idea over the next 2 or 3 days, you can grow it over the next 2 or 3 minutes. And then in like a few minutes, you have a full script that you can even gather suggestions and feedback on fast, as an example. And that is something that naturally, even within the writing, will require a lot of other colleagues to actually pitch in their ideas for that you can actually achieve on your own right now. And as simple as that sounds, imagine it now cutting across multiple fields of roles that you actually need to do that. And I think that's where the conversation comes into the agent idea, where you, instead of having to work with an editor or a proofreader, you probably can get in touch with, you can put an agent in place that actually proofreads your script and make suggestions to you. So you're actually able to do more faster to deliver results on that end.
I see. I see. So how did that help the KunKu process?
Yes.
And what is KunKu? So KunKu is it a story platform? What exactly is KunKu?
Yes,
KunKu app.
KunKu is it's an app, it's a mobile app on your phone that you open up and you have access to a repository of short stories that teach rich moral lessons to kids by them just flipping through and reading through. And we used to go through a tedious process of to produce those books. The books have captions in them, and we used to go through a tedious process of actually manually tagging the time frames for those captions to be in it. So one of the things we're able to leverage AI to do, which is text to speech, I mean, what did they call it? Closed captioning, which is to listen to an audio and transcribe it to text, was to improve on that to actually have that automatic. So something that will take an actual person to sit down to listen to a 5 minute story for about an hour and type out the time could be automated and done in within seconds to eliminate that kind of role. And then that person could put their time into more productive use. And that is like on the basic level. Now, what leveraging AI has now opened up possibilities for is that we could take those same stories and now bring them further to the big screens and animate them, which was originally our long-term goal, to actually get them into leveraging tools like Vue and Kling and the like, to actually get them animated and get them on screen to a platform like YouTube to actually reach an audience immediately. Exactly.
So the goal of the platform really is to address a challenge with the kids,
With writers reaching their audience. So the audience could are kids
writers reaching their
reaching their
audience.
so the audience are
So,
kids.
but would it be kids? Okay, so the audience would be kids,
The audience are
but
kids.
the writers will be kids as well.
Now, yes, that's part of the writers can now be anybody, which is part of what leveraging AI has given us the ability to do. Because initially, you needed a lot of skill sets and experience to be able to write an engaging content. But if we now teach kids or preteens how to write and how to leverage AI tools, they can actually come up, express their ideas better and be more professional and communicate better to actually be able to become publishers themselves on the platform.
Okay. Well, I think, I think there's a opportunity, there for the kids, to really connect. Some of the older ones, some of us
Yeah.
might already have things that we're already sort of plugged into. Of
Yeah.
course, if it's an area of interest, definitely a direction to go. But I
Yeah.
think the idea that like you can serve kids by empowering other kids is very game changing in my opinion.
Yes, definitely. That's actually part of our consideration in some of the tools that we're putting together. That, okay, if we're going to put a tool together for a writer to use, it has to be something simple enough that our user persona, who is a 12-year-old, is able to navigate and actually get to the end of the results immediately. And that's it works right now.
Okay, that's awesome. So we spoke about storytelling
Yes.
and what is it? So one of the things that I think about a lot is first order and second order thinking. And the idea behind that is how do we continue to extrapolate thoughts to be able to get more quality out of a specific conversation? And so typically when people go on GPT now, they use GPT, you could use GPT and say, hey, I wouldn't mind if you can demonstrate this as well on GPT if possible. When people jump on GPT, they go like, yeah, I'm trying to create this story to do X, Y, and Z. It generates the story for them. That's it. In my opinion, like the creative self, which is what I call maybe the first order or second order thinking, you're basically looking at, okay, I want my character to be this way, and I want my X1Z to be that way, and I want my Z to be this way. And essentially what you're really doing is crafting out a story that isn't just generated by GPT, but has a sprinkle of your thoughts and your processes involved in it. So my question to you is, how do you, not how does one, but how do you, when you started using GPT, how did you walk through that process? Can you help our audience?
I would say because I work with a lot of people, in fact, that's something that I realized that has helped me a lot because I'm open about working with people. So one of my criteria for choosing who to work with is character. It does not matter what you know or not know, as long as you have the right character, the positive character, you can learn to do anything. So, and because I've done that over years, I have the ability to actually listen to someone and actually pick out, okay, what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And that same mindset is what I carry into leveraging AI tools. Like, okay, if I'm interacting with this, what can it do? What are its limitations? And working around navigating those limitations now determines on what your own experience and skill sets is to say, okay, so this is what we need to actually work on, or maybe give better instructions to get the results out of what we need. Like the example you shared, like, okay, most people interact with GBT or maybe any other AI tool out there on a basic level. Like, I want this particular task and they expect it to be perfect immediately. But it's the ability to actually look at it and say, 30% of this is good, but 70 is good. How can we get that to 80%? Okay, this is what is missing. And let's figure out how to interact with that. And then with that mindset, it's a growth mindset and it actually helps you get better results interacting with it.
Yeah.
So
So I want us to really help from a practical standpoint. So let's say, for example, I was putting a prompt. How would I navigate that? So do I start with my thoughts processes first? Like what does that practical process
the
look
practical,
like? Yeah.
yeah,
For
the practical process for me, and it might come across crude, but it's as simple as putting notes on the notes app on my phone.
yeah.
I have an idea. I want this boy to be in a fight with a bully, and I want him ultimately to have a different strategy to win. Now, okay, this bully should
There
have
we
a
go.
new.
Yeah.
This
There we
bully
go. No,
should
I
have.
agree with you. I think
Yeah,
writing those notes are really critical. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. this bully should have a name and maybe he should be twice his size. So that actually sends the idea that, okay, this person is impossible to beat. And that's my experience that I'm putting into notes as rough as it is. But by the time you have these elements disorganized, you could actually take that note as with the bits and pieces of disorganized information that makes no sense to anybody else but yourself. Copy it and put it into ChatGPT and say, look at this note, I'm trying to tell a story, and these are the concepts that I have put in place, that have come to mind. Do something with it and structure it into a storyline, and let me see what it is. And then it gives you an idea, and then that also sparks up a different level of idea. So it's kind of like it helps you organize your thoughts too. And you could even see perspectives that you didn't think of before. And then you can now make those suggestions. So you copy it out, paste it into the notes, sleep over it, and add more plots to it. Like where at some point, maybe the aunt comes into the story, and the aunt is this person that would normally encourage him. And so maybe that becomes a plot that he has a conversation with the aunt, and then you come back to it. So that process itself, if you are someone that believes, oh, innovation should be for a set of people or a set of things, that will be a limiting mindset that will not let you actually explore the possibilities of what's real, what's available to you. So it's
You
been
start with so do you start with the title?
you don't even have to have a title.
You just have to just keep,
You just need to
create
have your idea of what you want to achieve.
I see. Is there a chance that you start mixing ideas from other concepts, or you create an idea what it is that you want to accomplish in terms of concept, and then you start putting the pieces that you want to be involved in that concept?
Yes. And the the examples you just gave are very possible scenarios. Like you can pick ideas from other concepts. That's being innovative. And you can actually restrict yourself that, okay, you only want to work with this. So there's really no limiting. It's what you want to do that matters. It's not what is possible to you. So you
Okay.
choose how you direct it, or you
Okay.
choose what results you want to get out.
I see. I see. I see. So you start with a thought, or a concept.
Yes.
That concept is is that concept the concept of the title, or that concept is just
In
just
fact,
a brand?
at the end of the day, you could even write a story and say, okay, this is the title that I have. What other title would you suggest that would resonate with someone that is living in Cincinnati, Ohio, who is a 12-year-old? And you get 3 or 5 suggestions around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that becomes what you put build
Your plot.
scenarios around, your plots
Exactly.
around. Okay.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
So, in having maybe a particular scene in the story is the boy, he's thinking through something, maybe the hero who is a boy.
Let's walk through an example. Do you want to share your screen and walk through an example? Do you have a mind map, maybe something that you use, or Miro?
I have a lot, but it's probably okay. Let me open
No,
my
you can use a new page, and then just like a simple, let's say a simple 1 minute trailer.
okay.
Because I think that this is what's really missing in the creative space. And I think that a lot of people think that they just walk into GPT and just write a prompt and then it just generates something. But what I'm encouraging people to do is, rather than think in that, flat,
Yeah.
on a flat surface, we need to start exploring first order and second order thinking. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. To not make this too long, I'm going to restrict it to only storytelling. So let's assume we're talking about a topic right now, which is
You
something.
sharing your screen, yeah?
Oh yes.
Guys, I'm really enjoying this conversation, talking to a creative mind, Olu, on how his thought processes are like in making stuff happen. So really excited to dive deep into it. Yeah, Olu, let's go.
Okay. So let's assume we're we're having a conversation right now. We want to tell a story, and the story we want to talk about is teach kids about collaboration.
Okay.
Me from my t- can you see my screen?
I
Okay.
can see you
From
very
my
well. ChatGPT.
storytelling experience, knows that okay, to tell a story, I need a hero, I need an obstacle, and I need a resolution. while I can't go into the details of that right now, I could just simply go into
Well, you don't
ChatGPT.
have to. Yeah.
I could just
Yeah.
go into ChatGPT and say, okay, I want to tell, okay, draft me a story about a boy who is 12 years old in Cincinnati, Ohio, and who navigates a challenge to learn a lesson about collaboration. This is very big, but this is just playing around to see what's possible. And then it's gonna draft that. Now, if I have a particular story in mind that I wanted to actually use, let's say maybe a particular experience that maybe another boy did not collaborate with and led to some devastating setback, it's better to actually have all those fleshed out. But right now, I have an original story that is just a rough idea of, now this is a long story. I could have given it a prompt to say, okay, limit it to 500 words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so because I included the fact that it's in Cincinnati, Ohio, it's given it the bridge on Vine Street, which is a
Mm-hmm.
public park here. And the
Mm-hmm.
12-year-old Marcus Bell loved doing things on his own. He lived with his mom in Cincinnati, Ohio, and this is just a story. And he gave
Mm-hmm.
the boy a character, Marcus Bell. So right now we have a short story that we can develop on.
Yep.
Now, if you feel like, okay, there's a particular piece of it that I'd like a particular humorous experience that I
Mm-hmm.
want to actually be infused into it, then I can actually pick on that and draft it as part of the story. Like maybe,
Mm-hmm.
okay, include this piece. And I could even leverage the tool itself to say, okay, this story, analyze it and tell me, let me just copy it. I could even copy it and put it into the same prompt and say, analyze this story and suggest humorous points to add to make it more engaging. And I could just try to
Yeah.
put the story again.
Interesting.
And it just goes back and improves on it. Below is a focus analysis, specific insertable humor opportunities. So the things that are right, the opportunities to actually,
Mm-hmm.
and then reading through. But now, what I'm struggling with, for example, is because this is not my original story, I have to read it to actually know
You have to
what's in.
almost read it to yourself and then
When it's
understand
your
what it is that
original
it's saying.
story, you already know that. So by the time you're reading suggestions from it, you already can see what the difference and improvements are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are going to, if you're going to tell this story to a different audience, maybe in France, there might
Mm-hmm.
be elements of it that are not necessarily that will be, because of Vine Street, the bridge on Vine Street resonates with me because I'm currently in Cincinnati. But if it was someone that is in Paris or someone that is in Nigeria, they probably will struggle with trying to figure out, okay, what that is. And maybe that will be another suggestion that I can say, okay, how can we improve on this to make sure that props or scenarios like that are well defined? So it could say bridge on Vine Street, you could suggest that, which is a popular bridge in Cincinnati that a lot of commuters use daily. So it gives better context to them in that. But depending on the problem is what you have to now navigate or decide on how to direct to leverage the tool to actually get better results from.
I see. I see. Fantastic. So in this particular case, for example, you scroll up, you would put the title. The title would be, let's see here.
In fact, I didn't even put a title in this.
You
It
don't
just
even have
makes
a title. It's just the
yeah,
story. Okay, so you
it's
don't
just
even have to have a
yeah.
title. Really, you
Yes.
can just start
Put in
creating
your
the story,
idea.
putting your ideas and all that kind of stuff. If you're mapping this out on a Miro board, would you basically just put your ideas? The guy would
In fact,
the guy
what
would
you're
drive
saying,
on a street. The guy would jump on a beside a train and then hopefully meet his lifesaver who would give him $1 million to go do a business.
yes. what you're saying, more often than not, I try to shy away from talking about my robots or thought organizing because I tend to reserve that for more complex thoughts. And what I'm trying to explain is like, even as something as simple as having a checklist on your notes is more than enough for to actually do major things leveraging AI.
There's two challenges here. There's, and depending on the audience. So the one challenge, you can stop sharing for
Okay.
now.
I will.
The one challenge is that you have individuals who basically have thoughts and ideas that they're trying to implement. And
Yes.
so if you put your thoughts and ideas, what you're saying is if you put your thoughts and ideas in GPT, it can give you some ideas on what to do and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Now, that's one piece. What I observe is that just generating it directly from GPT, you lose some creative freedom. And for someone who is trying to get into this space and do it well,
Yes.
right? They need to really be able to think. They have ideas, they have thought processes. They don't want to be encumbered or hindered by the tool because the tool takes its own route, but they
Yes.
want to creatively think through the process. I think ideally, I don't think there's anything difficult in them putting, the list of the ideas, like you were saying earlier, where you say, oh, I want this to happen. I want this to happen here. I want this to
Yes.
happen here. I want this to happen here. I want this to happen here. But these are the central things I want to be able to accomplish.
Yes.
But this is the destination I'm trying, to go. These are the challenges I want to happen in between.
Yes.
Say, okay, put it into GPT and say, can you create this to help me map out a story out of this?
In fact, you're talking
And
about
they
this.
don't even have to. And they don't even have to start with. They don't even have to start with like a 15 minutes thing. It can be a 1 minute short.
Yes, thank you for because while you were talking, it made me remember something that I think I overlook. Part of what I do is also journal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lost in thoughts about I'm curious about a lot of things and I'm lost in thoughts about different situations. So I have a journal on my phone that I put notes into. So
Mm-hmm.
even before I communicate with someone, I try to think through it and pen down ideas. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
repetition of that journal over the years actually is a treasure trove of different things that I've had. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are creatives, who are writers like out there, who have notes, who have pads, who have different booklets filled up that are
Mm-hmm.
filled with their ideas. Part of what I say is if you have a thing against AI, it's mostly creatives that are in some spaces that are advocating against it because they feel it takes away a particular part of identity. But the truth is, the creatives are the ones that should be leveraging AI the most because that's actually uh, what they call AI slurp. That's actually what causes it because the right people who should be using the tools are not using it. And then the people who have no idea about what they should be doing are the ones playing around with all the tools out there. So if you're already a creative person that does something as simple as write a journal or write your notes or write a beautiful letter to your parents or your siblings,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
already a light year away from the average person. And all you need to do is just pick up one of the AI tools and start to work with it. You will
Exactly. I
realize
even think for the people on the other side, this then becomes empowering for them, right? Because
yes,
now you can basically say, yes, I've learned all of these tools. Now I want to be able to create really stellar work. I want to really
exactly.
produce really stellar. And then this is what it is that I'm going to have to do to be able to make that happen. Fantastic. So I'm going to shift gears a bit. We've created the story. We've ideated. You put all the twists on it. And guys, there are a dozen of ways to do that. There are a dozen of storytelling ideas that actually does exist. So I encourage everyone who is listening to explore either by putting it in GPT, story techniques and things of that nature to make your story create suspenses, things of that nature. Now you're done with that. And typically people would then move from that stage to, okay, I want to generate images about the images of my character, right?
Yes. Yes.
So does anything in your story play into how your character's images or character images are generated? And I'm not just talking about emotions. I'm just saying the character itself?
I think in the example of the story that I said, I gave specific information like the location, Cincinnati, Ohio, the age of the hero is male or boy, and he's Cincinnati, Ohio. So I think that already shapes an identity. Now, if part of the story plot has to do with his race, his language, that's also going to be someone who's a writer already has the skill to actually define and shape all those in words that create images in the mind of the readers. And now that's part of what we understand as writers, as creatives, that we can actually have that information from within the story and then use it to create a character and design. Like, okay, it now depends. So what kind of character, we already have the basic information about the person, the hero, that there's going to be a boy, he's going to be about 12 years old, and he's in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I think most models can already figure that out already, even from the story. So I could even use a tool like ChatGPT to say, okay, create me an image of this kid in a particular style.
Can you do that? Let's show
Okay.
the audience. So guys, we moved from storytelling piece, and the idea is you can create stellar stories now with GPT.
Yeah.
And like Olu was saying, now you can put your thoughts and ideas, like think. What I love about what he's saying is that you can think out of the box. Like you can just dream, and essentially from just your dreams, you can actually start putting together things that can help to craft your stellar story, your
Yeah.
bestseller. And so you have that. Now you want to generate the images for those. And now rather than you having to spend a whole lot of money trying to generate the characters, you can actually generate that on GPT. And
Yeah.
so Olu wants to walk us through that process right now.
So from the story that we have earlier, the name of the boy is a 12-year-old boy called Marcus Bell. So you can essentially say, okay, create me an image of Marcus Bell. I already have this copied. Bell, full body pose. And I could simply switch on to the create image function. And he asked me if I could choose a style from here, or I could simply define it. So I could say I want it in the cartoon style. And then it's going to create an image for me to represent Marcus Bell. Now, I didn't give it any specifics about the attire or the setting. So if I wanted a specific kind of hats or specific color of shirt, I could include that in the prompt too and have that done.
You see, and that's what I was talking about earlier. This is where that creative side comes in, right? Because basically, you're creating a character. You have to think about how the character is represented from scene to scene.
Yes.
You know, if it's in the morning, they might be wearing pajamas. If it's in the evening, you know what I'm saying? Depending on how
Yeah.
creative you want to go.
Exactly. So it's really your own depth of involvement or description that limits you right now. And which is if you have unlimited creativity, you're the one that will decide where you want to stop. But the possibilities out there right now that you can do anything.
Exactly. Let's go to 11 Labs real quick and show people how to generate that while this is doing its thing. Okay,
Okay.
actually, the character is coming up now.
Yeah. And currently we're using the image generation tool in ChatGPT. Every other
ChatGPT.
model has their own image generation models that you can
Exactly.
actually use.
Yeah. I'm going to have you back so we can start to sort of diving deep into some of those conversations, but I think this is a good start. So guys, we generated the story. Now we're generating the character. So this is the character. And you can generate multiple characters. You can modify the characters and things of that nature. So this is amazing.
Yes.
And then once you generate the character, you can also generate the environment you want the character to stay and then bring them together. You want to talk about that. And then you can stop sharing and then move to 11 Labs so that we can, yeah.
At the moment, what you just said are multiple phases of the project. And I think that's something that we should also address. Like, while it's one thing to actually have your story written, But you realize that because we're able to actually write the story faster, we have more time and room to actually pay attention to doing more of the activities that needs
Yes.
to be done. Which is that,
Yeah.
so I need to draw a character that looks a certain way. I actually just did that in minutes. And now, so I need an environment, like I need Vine Street Bridge. I need a neighborhood where the house is, so I can as well go in there and create those images.
That is awesome.
Exactly. And then, so
And
now
guys,
where you're
what is
leapfrogging to,
you basically explained something that I don't want to gloss over. Guys, what you just said is extremely important. You have the character, but
yes,
then you want to put the character in an environment that is actually very similar to the environment
in the story.
that you in reality are putting in the story. You can
Exactly.
actually go get that environment and
Yes.
actually create the image or put the character inside of that environment,
Yes.
or change the environment into a cartoon style
Yes.
environment,
Illustration. Yes.
and then put your character on that. Go
Yes.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. And now, so you realize that what is happening is rather than sit and say, oh, I've written a story, now I'm looking for someone to be a publisher, you can actually have the time and attention to do more of what you need to do in the cycle to actually have
Mm-hmm.
the story ready itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Incredible.
then you are actually leveraging the skills of a lot of other people, a lot of sketch artists, a lot of illustrators,
Mm,
doing it with AI to actually be able to deliver on those results immediately.
exactly. That's incredible. That's
So
incredible.
now where you leapfrog to is now the voice, which
The
is the,
voice.
and I'm sure a lot of us have smartphones and mics around us. You might as well just record that. But what is not possible is exactly. You can record that and say, okay, this is the voice of my character, and this is the voice
Mm-hmm.
that will narrate the story. And a lot of people who are currently writers, I think, are able to do that even conveniently. That's why we have the rise of podcasts and the like. But you can also now leverage a tool like 11 Labs to
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I want to use a particular voice to narrate this story in a
Mm-hmm.
particular tone. And so all you
Mm-hmm.
need to do is just paste the text into 11 Labs and say
Mm-hmm.
generate, and it gives you an MP3 file of the story narrated.
Fantastic. Let's show the audience, and then we would keep them wanting more, because there's that
Yeah.
animation piece that we wouldn't be able to cover definitely in today's session.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for us to share how the audio is generated. And then we encourage people to play around with Google View maybe before our next conversation. And then we get to share some of the stuff that page one, right, is doing as well.
Yes.
Page two.
Yes. I'm trying to share my screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
If you can hear me, I'm going back to the story we generated earlier.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna need that to actually generate the audio.
There you go.
And I might as well just copy this and put it into 11 Labs text to speech. And I basically have a voice here that is Christina, but let me change that to a familiar voice. This going to using this feature actually helps enhance some of the pacing issues in voice narratives, like define some emotions in it and all. But all you have to just paste in the story and say generate
Mm-hmm.
speech, and then you have the audio generated for you.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Can you hear me, Olu?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. So now you're playing it, right?
Yeah, I can play it now.
Okay. Yeah, guys. So I'm not sure if we can hear you, but I know for sure that, it's working.
Yeah. So, and even what 11 Labs does is it generates two different prompts for two different versions for you with two different
Versions that
pacing.
you can make your choice. Fantastic. Yeah, so Olu, that's fine. We're going to continue this session. We're going to go into more deep dives later. You can definitely, there you go. Okay. So guys, that's 11 Labs. You can play around with 11 Labs, drop your text into 11 Labs, and then it generates the audio for you. I want you to share how people can connect with you and connect with some of the work that you're doing in this space. This was an amazing conversation. I want to continue the conversation here soon. But if people wanted to reach you, what are the best ways that they can reach you?
Yes, you can reach me on LinkedIn, and you can reach me on social media, and you can just send me a message on LinkedIn. That's Olu Abiba.
Fantastic.
Name on LinkedIn, Olu Abiba, and also on Instagram, it's also Olu Abiba. And you can currently go to the product that I mentioned there, which is the app KunKu. It's at KunKu, KUNKU.co. That's kunku.co. And as we speak along, we're going to also expose some of the tools that we're working on to actually even make this workflow easier. And then I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in other episodes. Yeah,
Fantastic.
that'll help a lot of
So,
people better.
yeah, fantastic. So, just to get people excited about some of the things that you've done, I
Yeah.
want you to play one of your animation videos so people can see
So,
it.
yeah,
Um,
that's on the channel KunKu app. I'm
yeah,
gonna,
yeah.
yeah,
Share your screen and play the best, and not. I would challenge you not to use you know what I'm talking about.
I'm just
Just the
gonna,
best, the
I'm
best
just
for my
gonna,
the
I'm just,
best for my audience.
I will show the latest.
Okay.
And I'll leave them to explore and decide. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show the trailer of this. And then the actual story is also on the channel.
So guys, this is the kind of quality I'm talking about, where you have that engagement while you also have the main actors doing the thing in the scene. Guys, that's the level of work that Olu produces. I think this is the kind of level of work that you can do as well for those who are creatives and are looking to share their insights with the world. This is incredible. So thanks, Olu, for sharing. We're super excited that you joined us today. The day one slapped today. We're super excited that you're here with us today, and we're looking forward to having you back. Have a blessed and wonderful day, guys, and connect with Olu on LinkedIn, and you can watch some of the things they're doing on YouTube as well. Thanks again, Olu, for coming, and
Yeah.
looking forward to having you back.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Fantastic.